We're going to have a look at reading decimal scales and also rounding decimals to the nearest whole number. So when we round to the nearest 10, we look at the ones column. When we look to round to the nearest 100, we look at the tens column. When we're rounding to the nearest whole number, we look at the tenths column. So we follow the same rules when we're rounding numbers, no matter what the situation is. If the digit in the column that you're looking at is a 1, 2, 3 or 4, goes down, we go down to the number before, to the nearest whole 10 or the nearest whole number. If the digit in the column that you're looking at is a 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9, you go up to the next number. If you were rounding to the nearest 100 and you look at the tens column, if your tens column was 10, 20, 30, 40, you go down to the hundreds before. If you're rounding to the nearest 100 and your tens column is 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, you go up to the next 100. Same if you were rounding to the nearest thousands and you look at the hundreds column, if it was 100, 200, 300, 400, you would go down. If it was 500, 600, 700, 800 or 900, you would go up. So that being said, it makes sense that when you're rounding to the nearest whole number, you look at your tenth column, and if it was 1/10, 2/10, 3/10 or 4/10, you go down to the nearest whole number. If it is 5/10, 6/10, 7/10, 8/10 or 9/10, you go up to the next nearest whole number. Now remember, a whole number is something that doesn't have a decimal fraction. So if, for example, 1, 5, 106, 293, if there's not a decimal there, that is a whole number. So let's have a look at this decimal scale. There's a ruler there. We know that there's 10 tenths inside one whole number. So we've got the arrow pointing at 2.8 there. So your whole numbers that are the borders would be 2 and 3. So it's 2.8, and you can see that the arrow is physically pointing closer to the 3 than it is to the 2. So it makes sense that we round up to the 3. If it doesn't have the arrow there though, you're looking at the 10th column, which is 8, which means we round up to the next whole number, which would be 3. Looking at this scale, it's pointing to 9.3. So our border numbers would be 9 and 10. Again, if you look at the arrow, it is pointing closer to the 9, so it makes sense to round down. However, if you didn't have that, we've got 9.3. The 10th column is 3, which means we would go down to the 9, and that's why that's slightly larger. So we'd round 9.3 to 9. We've got 6.4 here, almost in the middle, but we can still see the arrow is slightly closer to the 6 than to the 7. So 6.4 would round down to 6, because the 4/10 means we'd round down. Having a look at this one, we'll get 0.7. So our border numbers are 0 and 1. 7/10 falls into that category of rounding up. So that means we round 0.7 to 1. Now I'm going to give you a chance to do it and answer the question before I say the answer. So round to the nearest whole number. So 9.2, we don't have the scale, but we can use knowledge that 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4 would go down, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8 and 0.9 would go up. So 9.2, where would we round that to? 9. 2.6, so that falls between 2 and 3. Where do we round that to? 3, because the 10th column is a 6. 5.1, that would fall between 5 and 6. Where do we round that to? 5, because the 10th column is a 1, which means we round down. 3.3, that falls between 3 and 4, so do we round up or do we round down? We would round down because the 10th column is a 3. 2.5, right in the middle, but think about the rules that you have to follow. So it falls between 2 and 3, but do we round up or do we round down? we would round up to 3. Remember, if it's 5, we go up the way. And 0.4, similar to the last scale we looked at, falls between 0 and 1. So where would we round that to? And we'd round that to 0 because the 10th column is a 4, meaning that we go down the way. And that is how we round decimal fractions.